Morning. Is there a little energy, a good morning back for me? Good morning. Yes, thank you. Excellent. Well, it's a bit spoiled by the kinds of speakers. I mean, I love Anthony. I think he has wonderful things to say. And as I think about what he was talking about in category creation, it's really hard to create categories. A lot of times when I'm advising smaller companies, it's like, could you just fit in one already and then merge it into maybe what it is that, or reshape a category? I'm fortunate that sales engagement is an emerging category. It was one of the things I was looking for in starting to work at SalesLoft. And so the places like G2 and Trust Radius are almost like early indicators of where you do see customers kind of forming around a particular industry type or business problems that are being solved. And so they're advancing my slides for me. There we go. Okay. That advantage of category creation. What I'm going to talk about today is a little bit also kind of strategy through execution. So category creation is one way to kind of break through in the market. And it's really kind of cool, too, that you're getting to hear from marketing leaders in different go-to-market categories. We've talked about customer success, and I'm going to talk a little bit earlier in the funnel around identification of account strategies that align to go-to-market strategies and then how you might go after them. So that's the intention of my 25 minutes, which I'm going to, hopefully someone will help me stay on time. Might even go fast. So when I started to create this presentation, I was imagining, I'm like, it's like a field of dreams. You get to imagine what you want to do. And then what I was thinking about is like, wait a minute, a field of dreams is you build it and they will come. And that is not at all what we're talking about. Account-based strategies is having a very focused effort on something big that you're going to take a risk to go after. And it's going to take training and time and alignment and tacking and maybe doing a couple things before you get it really right. But you have to think about what your ultimate goal is in achieving this summit that you want to reach. And so when I think about go-to-market, and I've had the opportunity to do this at many different companies. I worked at Adobe for 15 plus years, and in different business units trying to look at go-to-market strategies. I've been in $200 million companies and smaller companies. And what's interesting is it's the same challenge regardless of the size of the company that you're working in. And I have learned the hard way that sometimes it's better to be aligned than to be right. So a lot of time, my job is to help sales, marketing, and product align on a go-to-market strategy that we all believe in and we're ready to invest in. And sometimes you do have one or two ways that you can go, but it's better to pick one and go together than to have each group going separately. And I wish it was easier than it is, but it's actually quite hard to do that and to make people stay aligned on the strategy. So the first thing you have to do is establish your strategy, and yes, you have to pick one. Not everybody gets one. And once you do determine the strategy, not everybody gets to tuck theirs in somehow in the framework that you've built. So really being true and core to finding that strategy is the first step. And if you don't, and depending on the size of companies you're all working in, when nothing is sure, everything is possible. When I started at SalesLoft about a little over a year and a half ago, I mean, it was a founder-led company, and there are a lot of great ideas, and we'd grown amazingly well based on the different ideas the team had. But as you scale, you can't execute effectively on 13 different go-to-market strategies. That's how many we had by the time, and then it was whoever woke up the next day and said, oh my God, we should sell to airlines, or, what was the other one? Sports teams, yes, and you're like, oh my gosh, please just stay focused. So what did we do? I've used this framework a lot, and it's super simple, but really what it is it's an alignment exercise. And so I'll give you an example. I was at about a $100 million company, my last company, Alfresco. We had, Asia Pac, US, EMEA, and each of the sales leaders for those regions had their own strategy for how they were going to market. EMEA was going vertically, North America was going functionally, meaning I'm going to sell to HR. And when you have a platform that can do many things, it can do many things. And so we pulled the folks in. We did a bunch of interviews first, kind of like what are the use cases that are working, who are the customers that we have, what's their churn rate, what's the solution, are they growing, are they successful, are they happy, and looking at either the product capabilities or the solutions or the use cases, and really going through this exercise collectively, not scientifically, but collectively, where everybody gets to speak into our ability to execute. Like, is the product ready? Is there still things we need to do? Do we need to hire expertise? Versus the competitive marketplace. And then the size of the circle is the market opportunity. So then you start to like plot everything and put it on the scale, and of course it's always about up and to the right. So where there's large market opportunity, not much competition, is that the area that we should go after? And at least you're letting everybody collectively participate in the discussion, and it's a data point. But once you get to this level, which is usually a 2-day workshop, then you can start to size it. This is where you bring in your MBAs or your quants or your product marketing team and evaluate and score the options. This is just a very small picture of a long spreadsheet with lots of pages behind it. But the things you can look at are the market size. Are your sales teams already trained on being able to execute on this strategy? Is product investment required? Is there an easy customer you can target? Is there a compelling reason to buy? Do you have product market fit? If it's an innovative category, are you going after the pace of tech adoption? Are people just buying a lot of technology? And then what's the barrier to entry? Are you going to win in this endeavor? And then you score them, and we give them different weights, and then you have a framework for which to make a decision, for which ultimately the CEO makes the decision. So we did this collectively with the go-to-market leaders. We got analysts involved because guess what? When you are creating categories, analysts want to be involved in that. So they get to give feedback and learn what you're doing so they can apply that to their learning. And from that, we went from those 13 different potential strategies to 3. And I loved what Anthony said early in terms of having that purpose and mission. So we codified it in one page that you take to the company, where we talk about our vision, and our vision is to have every seller loved by the buyers they serve. Like, it's about making those human connections and being able to make sure that transition into maximizing revenue and creating a fantastic buying experience. That's what SalesLoft is all about. That's why we're here. And we live a cultural first company. So it's you go in and it's about our people first, and how we invest in them and how we grow. Average age is 27, so we have a lot of people early stage in their career, and so really making that investment in them to be able to deliver those great experiences for our customers. Also in the corporate strategy, you absolutely have to have short-term and long-term revenue goals, like what are we going after, what other things are we going after, customer satisfaction, category leadership, and then that went into our core strategies. So we are an employee-first company. That's where that leverage and culture piece comes in, and we want to build great products. And as we move into new categories, sales reps, business development reps, customer success reps, making sure that we're building a delightful experience for all of them is actually a big deal. It's hard to do in a product, and being able to track those. And then we have our 3 growth strategies. And once we get those in motion, we can go ahead and look at another one. So it's not that we're not going to stop having growth strategies, but this is where we're starting. And guess what it allows you to do? My favorite thing. Say no to everything else. Those great ideas that come up, that is a great idea, but these are our growth strategies. And this is what we're investing in today. So we're going to have to put that one on the back burner and evaluate it later. It is an empowering position to be in. The second thing that it does, allows the entire company to align what they're doing to the strategies of your business. Oh, now I know how I need to prioritize my time around one of these 3 areas. And then we have plans for each one, and we're communicating that to the company, but they know where we're going. And that's important. And it doesn't change every day, because once you go from maybe a 10 or a 20-person company to a 100-person company to a 400-person company, it gets harder to pivot when you get big. To a 1,000-person company, it gets even harder. So you can't have a new idea every day and ask that company to chase that idea for the quarter. You need to start thinking long-term, and that's what this allows you to do. Okay, so in terms of identifying the go-to-market, my advice is gather input from your stakeholders, quantify and score the options, and I've seen this, more than 3 is too many. That rule of 3 just doesn't matter how you apply it. Like, I've been in a company where we've had 5, where we've had 7. At the end of the day, 2 or 3 is what gets done. So once you have identified the go-to-market strategy, now it's around how do you tie that to selecting the right accounts. And it really is the hard and scary part. I've been running account-based plays for the last 6 years. I think I was one of the early adopters of that. And I would even say some of the work that we were doing at Adobe was also account-based. We had 375 customers that made up $500 million in revenue. So depending on the kinds of products, we were selling multi-million-dollar solutions, but we actually had less customers that we targeted there than we have now in a smaller business. So it really does depend on kind of your business strategy. But getting to the hard and scary part is you do have to pick. And you have to align with the sales leaders in order to do that. And our friends at Topo, have quantified this. And it's not about, account-based strategy is really about your resources. How do you apply your limited resources not only to leads, but to pipeline, to closed-won business, to growth business? If you are targeting the right accounts that are interested in you, you're going to see things like high-growth companies that are 2.5 times more likely to run account-based strategies, because you know who you're selling to. That's what it means. And I know what customers I want to sell to. And the way that we look at it, and I've talked a lot and been at a lot of ABM conferences, is it's really about how do you apply your resources and personalization against the different groups. And so you want to look at like a 70-25-5 model and use different data to be able to help you identify the target accounts in your market. We sell to technology, financial services, and services businesses. So my total addressable market is 50, 60,000 potential companies in the geographic markets that we're doing business in currently. That is not an account-based strategy, right? So I need to use other indicators to be able to figure out which of those accounts to target. So the first thing that you use is basic firmographic characteristics: company size, industry, geography, maybe revenue. Like that can get you to at least a set of accounts that you're working. And then you start to use additional information. So I love to be able to use like technologies. If my technology sits on a platform, well, they got to have that, and there's data out there that will tell me who that is. At my last company, we decided to go all in on AWS, and that allowed me to focus all my efforts and resources around companies that have just implemented AWS. That just made it a smaller market size right away, and I could start targeting and directing my messaging towards that. Here, I might look at, okay, they're using Salesforce at SalesLoft. They're using Salesforce. They're using other sales tech. The more sales tech they have, the more attractive they are. So these are all things that I can gather from third parties to score these accounts to make them more attractive, and then we can select across the different tierings. But I always do advise that the tier 1 accounts, the ones that we go really hard after and spend lots of money going to win, is a collective selection between sales leadership and marketing leadership. Now, we sell to enterprises, mid-market accounts, and startups. So we have 3 different models. We have 3 different target account sets and ways that we look at target accounts for that model. This is a learning. So my tier 1 account list for mid-market is actually more than 5%, just because it's more of a volume and velocity business. And so we're learning as an industry that sometimes the pure ABM doesn't apply, and you have to kind of run multiple variations. So we run 3 different views on those different market segments. There's a difference now, too, and I am a fan of technology where it adds value. And so while we talked about target account selection, there is prioritization. And so there's lots of new technologies out there that can show intent. And the importance of this is you have your target accounts, but you don't know which ones of them are actually interested now in what you want to buy. And so folks like Bombora and Demandbase, they go out into the open web, and they're finding companies that are searching for or looking at content that's related to what you do. So if you think about, you have Google search terms, you look for that, those come directly to you. This takes it outside of Google. Before they're actually looking, are they in a space that is downloading or on a page that also is aligned to the keywords that you would assign to your Google search? And so Bombora and Demandbase, they do it differently. I actually use both for different reasons. 6 Sense is also in that same category. And then Terminus we use for when companies come to our website but don't fill out a form. I know they're there. So that's another indication that they're interested, but they haven't yet converted. So I can't manage them as a lead, but I can go after them as an account. And G2 similarly But G2 is even more qualified because they're looking at peer reviews, they might be looking at my customers. So each one of these intent signals has a different value and I want to respond differently. So we use this as a way to prioritize accounts. We show that to our sales teams in their Salesforce instance. Here's your target accounts, here's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and here's the account prioritization score based on marketing interactions and intent signals. And that's the accounts that you should be working proactively, outbound. And so then we track that. We also show how much outbound effort is going, and so are we working the right accounts that are interested in us and have marketing engagement as well as sales engagement, and that's how we're lifting. So inside secrets. When you think about account selection, you want to use data to select the account, use intent to prioritize, and make sure reps understand the inputs. They're looking at these scores and they're like, I have no idea what that means. So we do take the time to sit with the first line managers, going through the process, making sure all the reps understand what the data means so they know how to act on it. Too frequently, we'll look at, they're looking at the wrong thing, they're still going with gut. We've got data to tell us that these are the right accounts to go after. Let's make sure we're putting all our effort together. So now that you know your go-to-market strategy, you know who you're targeting, you got to get there first. I'm sure we've all heard the statistics around how much a customer spends time, I think it's actually my next slide, looking for things. But if you don't do it, somebody else is going to get there first. BANT is dead. Right? If you're running a program that is around budget, need, authority, and time, they've already made a decision and they've been influenced by somebody else. You need to get to them before so you can advise them on the strategy they need to take. This is a gentleman, his name is Colin O'Brady, and he recently became the first to cross Antarctica, unassisted, 57 days. He actually spoke at our conference. He's a super cool guy. He's done many firsts. But to be the first at something, you have to train, you have to focus, and actually he did have one competitor. They took off at the same point in time at one day, and he was telling the story about how they were going along, and all of a sudden he saw them, and it was this weird thing. You're in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, hello? He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, so they were both waving at each other and kept going. But when you're out there by yourself, there is one strategy, but know that the world is actually crowded. They're not on the edge of Antarctica by themselves. They're out there, and there is not a content problem. This has been validated. There's lots of great content, maybe on a blog that you want it to be your destination. We've fixed the content problem. Now it's how do I disseminate that information in a way that it helps me figure out what the next step is. And so this was just at Gartner's conference last week. They've now upped the number that buyers are spending 62% of their evaluating time on their own searching. Guess what? Those intent signals are going to let me know, and I'm going to get there first. That's my goal. Those who get there first have a better chance of influencing the deal. And so how do you do that? I'm going to give you a couple little tidbits from research that we've done, research that Topo's done, and research that one of our largest customers has done. So now we know it takes more than ever. I've got a filter that is like a macro filter, and sometimes marketing automation emails still get through, but we know that it takes about 15 different tries to get an interaction with a person. And when you look at it, email is still going to be the first effort. That's still where people live most and your most likely chance of actually reaching someone. But so are phone calls. Cold calling is back in style. And so you're looking at emails and how many times you're actually calling or leaving a voicemail, social touches, direct mail interactions, all those added up. When we look at our data set of the top 100 most successful companies, we've got about 2,500 that use our platform, this is what they're doing. And when you're thinking about that, you have to go to where the buyers are. So it's these ideas of multi-channel that you're looking at, and these are the combinations. And so when we looked at the combinations of email, phone, LinkedIn, social chat, or email, phone, LinkedIn, or email, like the highest performing were they had multiple LinkedIn touches. Now we go after salespeople, so they actually are in LinkedIn. If you are going after CIOs, they're likely there. So B2B buyers tend to be in LinkedIn, or if there's another platform that they use, or depending on where you are in the world. But you have to go where your buyers are, and you have to go there more than once. It's so sad sometimes when I go in and I'm advising prospects or new companies, and they're like, yeah, well, we're just so busy with so many leads that, we give up after 3 times. And you're like, so busy with so many leads, if you've given up, like they just went somewhere else. Maybe you should filter the leads so you can, spend more time on the higher quality ones, because it takes 15 and a half times, regardless if it's inbound or outbound. And you can't give up too quickly. So this is an example of a company that we're working with IBM, and they're looking at how long does it take. So if you look at all those different touches over a duration of days, 24 to 26 days for them. It may be different for different companies. This is specifically for them. So going after large companies, but you can see that conversion rate over a period of time. So don't give up. The 3-day rule, guess what? No responses. It's 2 to 3 weeks, multiple touches. And so once you figure out what works for you, and there's lots of guides out there as we all share our information, is how do you take that and put it into a process or a system that makes it easier for your sales teams or your customer success teams to manage those processes? I know when I took over the BDR team at my last company and I was observing what they were doing, I mean, they're all hardworking. It wasn't that they weren't trying, but they were going to Word templates to pull down an email, and then they were, picking up the phone and dialing, and then they were trying to keep all that in track in their calendar. I mean, it was crazy. And so when we put in like a sales engagement system, you're able to codify that. People know what they do. It's partial automation, lots of personalization, and it's game-changing. I can't imagine any company that's doing an account-based strategy now that's not using outbound and not using this kind of system. So remember, when you're looking at going outbound, average number of touches is 15.6. You have to use a variety of mediums. The more, the better. And don't give up too soon. All right, so now that you've done that, got your system set up, you've got your cadences designed, you got to still say something meaningful, right? And keep it short, because we're all busy. So how many of these do you get in a day, right? Dear Magdalena, I would like to speak with your organization regarding how we can assist your efforts to generate quality sales opportunities for your organization. Blah, 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 blah. Our current list reads like blah, blah, blah. Me? No, those are all big companies. I'm not a big company. And we have a database, and please take a moment, and here, please book a 15-minute with me. 15-minute meeting with me. Wouldn't you love that? And how many of these a day do we get? And while marketing automation, and I'm a marketer, and I still use it for certain things, helped people scale, it's created this. You can't be personalized when you're trying to send an email to 10,000 people. It just doesn't work, right? We've all sniffed it out by now. So we have to think differently to break through the noise. And so some of the things that we've learned is like, keep it short and sweet. This is the number of words in an email. Anything over 100 words starts to fall off. I don't want to see the big thing. Just net it out for me. Give me the Cliff Notes version, right? So keep it short and sweet. Those will increase your open rates. And make it personal, but don't make it creepy, okay? So this is one of our data scientists did this slide, which I'm like, gosh, it's been a while since I've been in physics or stats. So basically what it's saying is that you want to personalize up to 20% of your message, and you want to do it up front. And so this is where you are researching, you're saying something meaningful about their company, you're trying to tie in their problem, and then you can use your kind of boilerplate, and here's what we do and the kinds of companies we do it for. Similarly, if you're leaving a voicemail or anything else. So you want to make it personalized, but not too much, and it applies whether or not you're sending emails or leaving voicemails or actually that first conversation. And then you should ask direct. My other one I didn't put in here, but it's also one-word subject lines get the highest response rates. And using your company name and not their company name also improves. We have lots of these we've got like 35, so I had to pick 3. And so, go ahead and ask direct. I'm asking for a call, I'm asking for a meeting, I'd like to reconnect with you. Whatever that is, be clear about what it is so people know the response that you're asking them to do. So personalize around 20%, keep it short and direct, and regardless of what kind of communication it is, same rules apply as calls as emails. The other thing that I didn't include in here that I think is important is that you want to use a variety of mediums. You can't resend the same message every time. It has to change. And so think about, as you're looking at whatever that go-to-market strategy is and the problem that you're solving, like how do you take them on a journey? I would also, and I'm a big fan of Drift and G2 CMOs as well, and I love what they're saying right now, is you have to take somebody on a journey. Ebooks are kind of also dying, and so how do you drip information to them in a way that kind of takes, you're learning something every time. Every time I send you something, I want you to learn something. That's how you're going to get the person to respond to you, right? I just gave you 5 tidbits on how to communicate more effectively. Regardless if you're going to buy my product or not, was it useful? Do you know now a little bit more than you did before? Are you willing to engage? Do you feel positive about the experiences versus that big, long email that I might have sent you that meant and said nothing? Okay, so give them those little things that allow them to engage. Now, I know this is only 20 minutes, so I'm kind of cutting it short at the end, but I do want to say that this, and a lot of what I talked about was how do you engage new customers or how do you build relationships with customers over time, but we know in account-based it's about a lifelong relationship with them. And so those same rules apply if they're a prospect or a customer. And it's one of the mistakes that I see people make when they go into account-based strategies, that they don't include their existing customers, right? They're your best opportunity. They're at least 50% of my existing customers should be in tier 1. They're the big ones. They have land and expand strategy. So don't stop investing in your existing accounts. And when you think about how do you serve people meaningfully, how do you make that connection? This is a really good friend of mine, Don Cash. He was the head of inside sales at Adobe, and then he was at BMC, and he had a vision. He wanted to go hike the 7 summits and climb Everest, and he did, and sadly, after he got there, he passed away on the mountain. But he inspired in me because of the relationship that we had, something meaningful, right? His motto was to do epic shit. He wasn't afraid. He would come into a room, and he would connect with everybody. When you met him, you felt that connection, that human connection. When you sent him an email, he responded. When you sent him a text, he responded. Think about how, as a leader, how you empower the teams to make sure that every interaction they're having is meaningful and long-lasting. And that's the kind of relationship that you want to establish, you want to inspire your teams to have with their customers. That's that idea for us that every seller is loved by the buyers they serve. And that's what Don was for me. So in wrap up, you need to have a strategy. That's the hardest part, establishing, aligning on a strategy and sticking to it. Getting there first, because if you don't, somebody else will. And make sure that you have every interaction count always. Thank you.